In the heart of Lekki Phase 1, Lagos, Nigeria, nestled behind high white walls and black wrought iron gates, stood a mansion so opulent it could blind you in the noon sun. Palm trees lined the driveway, fountains danced in blue-lit pools, and the scent of imported jasmine clung to the air. This was the palace of Chief Ikenna Obasi, the billionaire oil magnate, tech investor, and founder of Obasi Group Holdings. At 54, he was a man whose name moved markets, whose signature unlocked empires. People called him Odogwu of the New Lagos. But behind the carved mahogany doors of his study, Ikenna sat alone in silence, staring at an old photograph, a boy, barefoot, standing beside a rusted bicycle in the dusty village of Umuozo in Abia State. The boy was him, decades ago. And now, everything was about to change. Ikenna Obasi was not born into wealth. He was born in 1971 in a single-room mud house with a leaking roof and no electricity. His mother, Mama Agatha, sold firewood and ogiri at the local market. His father had died in a motorcycle accident when Ikenna was just 5. At age 10, he was already helping his mother carry baskets of wares to Ariaria market in Aba, dodging akberos and corrupt police officers, often going the whole day without food. But even then, his eyes sparkled with defiance. "I no go die poor," he told himself every morning. At night, he studied by candlelight, devouring borrowed textbooks, learning equations far beyond his age, and sketching machines on old newspapers. His first real break came at 17 when he gained admission to UNN, University of Nigeria, Nsukka, on scholarship to study mechanical engineering. There, he was mocked for his accent, his clothes, his village manners. But he never allowed it to bend him. Instead, he studied harder, hustled smarter, he sold recharge cards, he printed handouts for lectures, he built rudimentary power banks from discarded laptop batteries, selling them to students during the notorious blackouts. And by his final year, he had already registered his first company, Obesi Tech Solutions. After NYSC in Kaduna, Ikenna moved to Lagos with just 12,000 naira in his pocket and a laptop he bought from Computer Village on credit. He rented a one-room apartment in Ajegunle, surviving on bread and sardines. His breakthrough came when he pitched a low-cost solar inverter system to a struggling private school in Ikorodu. They paid 500,000 naira up front. Ikenna delivered it in 2 weeks. Word spread, orders flowed. By 2004, his company had grown to 3 offices and 20 staff. In 2006, he partnered with a foreign investor to expand into oil and gas servicing, registering Obasi Energy. It was risky. He knew nothing about upstream or downstream oil, but Ikenna was never afraid to learn. He read, hired experts, made calls, knocked on doors. By 2010, Obasi Energy had won contracts with Shell and Chevron. Millions rolled in. In 2012, he bought his first private jet. In 2015, he became a chief, conferred with the title Omega One of Noah Land. But with every ascent comes a test. With money came power, and with power came enemies. By 2018, Chief Obasi was no longer just a businessman. He was a kingmaker. Governors called him, senators dined with him, foreign dignitaries sought his handshakes. But something was changing. He had become disconnected from his roots. He rarely visited Umuozo. His mother now lived alone in a marble mansion, surrounded by servants, yet suffocating in silence. His only son, Chike, was living recklessly in London, addicted to pills and parties. His daughter, Adiz, was engaged to a man twice her age because he was a billionaire's son. Ikenna had built empires, but his family was crumbling. One night, he got a call. His son had overdosed. Chike survived, barely. But that was Ikenna's moment of awakening. He flew to London in a frenzy. Sitting beside Chike's hospital bed, Ikenna wept. He wept not just for his son, but for everything he had become. "I gave you everything," he whispered. But Chike turned and said, "You gave me money, Dad, not you." Those words burned. He flew back to Nigeria the next day, but instead of returning to his Lekki mansion, he flew to Umuozo. No entourage, no security, just him and his driver. When the villagers saw him, they stared as if seeing a ghost. He walked to his childhood home, now abandoned. There he sat under the same mango tree where his mother once cooked yam and oil on firewood. And for the first time in decades, Chief Ikenna Obasi felt the weight of emptiness. That night in the village, an old teacher came to see him, Mr. Nwakama, who had taught him arithmetic in primary 3. The man was blind now, but his voice was sharp. "You have climbed the mountain, Ikenna," he said, "but the summit is not the end. What will you do with your legacy?" That was the question. That was the moment. Chief Obasi returned to Lagos the next day, but not to continue business as usual. He sold one of his jets, donated 3 billion naira to establish Obasi Foundation for education and mental health. He built free vocational schools in Aba, Makurdi, and Zaria, targeting at-risk youth. He funded therapy and rehab programs across Nigeria, quietly helping hundreds of families. He reconciled with Chike and moved him back home. He stepped down from 3 company boards and gave those positions to brilliant young Nigerians he mentored. And every month, he traveled back to Umuozo to sit with the elders, to sponsor scholarships, to remember who he was. By 2023, Chief Ikenna Obasi was no longer just a billionaire. He was a symbol, a story, proof that success is not about what you gain, but what you give back. He still wore designer suits, still flew business class, still signed multi-million naira deals. But now, he also sat with young street hawkers and listened to their dreams. He wasn't just a man of money anymore. He was a man of meaning. As the sun set behind the gates of his Lekki mansion, Chief Ikenna Obasi walked out to his garden, holding that same old photo of the barefoot boy with the rusted bicycle. He smiled. He had found his way back to himself, back to purpose. And this was only the beginning. It was a humid Tuesday evening in Chief Obasi was invited to a private dinner at the State House in Abuja. Only 12 men would sit at the table, governors, ministers, oil tycoons, and him. To outsiders, it looked like honor, prestige, recognition. But to Ikenna, it felt like a trap. He had been warned. When politicians smile, their teeth are sharper than knives. Still, he went. The room was draped in velvet curtains, the air thick with perfume and cigar smoke. 12 chairs, 12 powerful men. At the head, the president himself. Wine flowed. Jollof and grilled fish were served. But beneath the laughter, every word was weighed. Every glance was calculated. The president raised his glass. "Gentlemen, Nigeria is at a crossroads. We must decide who controls the future." Then his eyes landed on Chief Obasi. "And you, Chief, are no longer just a businessman. You are a symbol, and symbols must choose a side." The room fell silent. Obasi understood. This was not dinner. This was recruitment. After the plates were cleared, the real conversation began. A senator leaned close. "Chief, you have influence. You fund schools, hospitals. youth programs. People listen to you. If you endorse our candidate in the coming election, there are benefits, contracts, access, protection. Another minister added with a smirk, and if you don't? Well, Nigeria can be a very unfriendly place. Obasi kept his face calm, but inside fire roared. He had sworn never to sell his soul to politics, but refusing them meant war. 2 weeks later, newspapers across Nigeria exploded with headlines. Obasi Group accused of fraudulent oil deals. EFCC investigates billionaire chief Guy Obasi. Is the Odogwu clean? It was a lie. Fabricated documents, false testimonies. But the damage was done. Investors pulled back. Stock prices dropped. Social media buzzed with hashtags #ObasiGate. The enemies had made their move. And worse, someone inside his circle had betrayed him. Late one night, in his Lekki mansion, Obasi sat with his most trusted aides. "Find out who leaked this," he ordered. Within days, the truth surfaced. It wasn't strangers. It wasn't outsiders. It was a man he had mentored, a young protege he had lifted from the slums of Mushin. The betrayal cut deeper than any knife. The government froze 2 of his company accounts. His foundation's projects were delayed by new regulations. His phone calls went unanswered by men who once begged for his friendship. And then came the summons. He was to appear before the Senate Committee on Oil and Gas, a televised hearing watched by millions. The goal was clear: humiliation, destruction. But Obasi was not the barefoot boy anymore. He was ready. On the morning of the hearing, Chief Ikena Obasi adjusted his tie, picked up that same old photograph of the boy with the rusted bicycle, and whispered to himself, "They want war? Then let them see the man Umuozo raised." As the cameras flashed and the senators sharpened their questions, Chief Obasi walked into the chamber, and the nation held its breath.
Moral story: the price of standing tall. Chief Ikena Obasi had built an empire from nothing. One evening, a letter arrived. Not just any letter, but one sealed with the crest of the presidency. He was invited to a private dinner in Abuja alongside governors, ministers, and oil magnates. The men offered him contracts, access, and protection, but only if he endorsed their candidate. And if he refused, the country would become unfriendly. It was not truth that hunted him. It was power, because he knew something deeper. When wealth makes you bow to lies, you are no longer rich. You are owned. Moral: true power is not in money or influence, but in the courage to stand by your values, even when the world turns against you.